Admiral Kenneth Drell stood at the command bridge of the HSV Vindication, her silver-streaked hair pulled tight in a regulation bun, eyes fixed on the holographic display of the NIGMA homeworld. The planet Vexillum glowed an eerie purple beneath. Swirling atmospheric storms, beautiful, alien, and now marked for judgment. "Transmission ready, Admiral," announced Lieutenant Everard, his fingers hovering over the communications array. "Proceed," Drell commanded, straightening her shoulders beneath the weight of her decision. The bridge fell silent as the communication protocol initiated. Humanity had debated this moment for months in the unified solar parliament. The vote had been close, 230 to 227, but democracy had spoken. One warning would be issued, one chance would be given. This is Admiral Kenneth Drell of the Human Stellar Alliance addressing the High Conclave of the NIGMA Empire. For 3 decades, we have documented your systematic extermination of sentient species across the Orion Spur, the genocide of the crystalline luminarities, the consumption of the aquatic marasca, the neural harvesting of the Vorsian collectives. Drell paused, her voice hardening. Humanity has concluded that your empire represents an existential threat to all sentient life. We hereby issue this single warning. Cease all operations against sentient species, dismantle your harvest fleets, and submit to supervision by the Galactic Council. The bridge crew watched as Drell's face appeared on countless screens across the NIGMA Empire, her humanity exotic and strange to their six-eyed perception. You have 7 standard cycles to comply. There will be no negotiation, no second chances. Failure to meet these terms will result in consequences beyond your comprehension. Lieutenant Everard terminated the transmission, and Drell exhaled slowly. And now we wait. In the gilded chambers of the High Conclave on Vexillum, Supreme Overlord Zith Kragath's membranous wings fluttered in amusement. His voice, a chittering cascade of harmonics, filled the chamber. "The mammals presume to threaten us. How quaint!" His chief strategist Valexia stepped forward, her carapace clicking nervously. "Perhaps caution is warranted, Supreme One. Our intelligence suggests human technology has advanced significantly in recent years." "They are bipedal protein sacks," scoffed Councillor Mrutek. "Barely a century into interstellar travel. The NIGMA Empire has consumed 1,000 species more formidable than these humans." Zith Kragath raised a clawed appendage, silencing the chamber. "Valexia, what do we know of their offensive capabilities?" "Limited, Supreme One. They possess rudimentary matter-antimatter weaponry, standard photonic shields. Nothing that could threaten our quantum lattice defenses, and their fleet, fewer than 300 warships. We command thousands." Zith Kragath's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter in NIGMA physiology. "Then our response is clear. Prepare the harvest. Vessels, if they value their existence so little as to challenge us, we shall add their biomass to our repositories." A murmur of agreement rippled through the conclave. Only Valexia remained silent, recalling ancient records of species that had seemed harmless until challenged. Throughout galactic history, appearances had often been deceiving. That night, as Vexillum's 3 moons rose, the NIGMA response was broadcast across all human frequencies. "To the insignificant Human Stellar Alliance, your ultimatum amuses the High Conclave. The NIGMA Empire has ruled this sector for millennia. We do not negotiate with prey. Prepare yourselves to join our menagerie of extinct civilizations. As a demonstration of our resolve, we have dispatched harvest fleets to your outlying colonies. Their screams will reach your homeworld long before our arrival." On the Vindication, Admiral Drell received the transmission with an expression of cold resignation. She had expected this response, had prepared for it. Now humanity would demonstrate why challenging them had been the NIGMA's fatal mistake. "They've made their choice," she said quietly. "Initiate Operation Harbinger." Lieutenant Everard nodded grimly. "Yes, Admiral. May whatever gods they worship have mercy on them. Because we will not, Drell finished, watching as the first stealth vessels disappeared into the void, carrying humanity's answer to the NIGMA threat. The human colony on Proxima Centauri 3, known locally as Nova Terra, bustled with activity under twin setting suns. In the governor's office, Oren Mekiv stared at the emergency alert with growing horror. NIGMA harvest ships detected in-system. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. Evacuation impossible. He turned to his security chief, Lais Brexil. How many civilians? 83,000, she replied, her dark eyes reflecting the grim statistics. The nearest Alliance vessel is 20 hours away. Makiv's jaw tightened. Then we stand and fight. Activate the planetary defense network. What the approaching NIGMA fleet didn't know, what their intelligence had failed to uncover, was that Nova Terra wasn't merely a farming colony. It was a trap. Beneath the pastoral landscape lay Project Chimera, a defensive system developed in secret for precisely this scenario. As the NIGMA ships entered the outer system, automated sensors triggered buried installations across the planet's surface. Aboard the NIGMA command vessel, Fleet Lord Dravex observed the approaching planet with anticipation. Preliminary scans indicate minimal defenses. Standard harvesting protocols authorized. His subordinate Field Commander Kurox input the commands, deploying harvesters in cascading formation, calculating optimal extraction grid. The NIGMA vessels, organic synthetic hybrids resembling massive insects, arranged themselves in a geometric pattern above Nova Terra. Their ventral surfaces opened, revealing extraction apparatus designed to process entire populations efficiently. Begin. Atmospheric descent, ordered Dravex. That's when the trap sprung. From 50 locations simultaneously, gravitational distortion fields activated. The NIGMA ship suddenly found themselves struggling against forces that twisted space itself, compressing their hulls and disrupting their biomechanical systems. Unknown technology detected, shouted Kurox as warning signals flooded his station. The humans have deployed gravitational weapons. Dravex's compound eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible! Our intelligence indicated they knew we were coming. Interrupted Kurox. This was deliberate. On the surface, Governor Mekiv watched through observatory feeds as the first NIGMA vessels began to implode, crushed by artificial gravity wells 1,000 times Earth's normal pull. Status report, he demanded. Brexil monitored the tactical display. Chimera performing above expectations. 27 enemy vessels neutralized. 11 attempting withdrawal. Mekiv nodded grimly. Activate Phase 2. Across Nova Terra's surface, massive rail launchers emerged from hidden silos. Unlike conventional weaponry, these fired specialized payloads, nanomechanical swarms programmed specifically for NIGMA biotechnology. Admiral Drell warned them, Mekiv said softly. They should have listened. In space, the retreating NIGMA vessels found themselves peppered with thousands of microscopic impacts. The tiny projectiles burrowed through their hulls, releasing nanoassemblers that began systematically disassembling the biomechanical infrastructure from within. Fleet. Lord Dravex watched in horror as system after system failed. What is happening to my ships? Unknown contaminants spreading through the bioneural pathways, reported a panicking technician. It's converting our own technology against us. Within minutes, the mighty harvest fleet had been reduced to drifting hulks, their crews suffocating as life support systems transformed into toxic production nodes. On the Vindication, Admiral Drell received Nova Terra's report with grim satisfaction. Chimera deployment successful. All NIGMA vessels neutralized. Lieutenant Evrard studied the casualty reports. No human losses, Admiral. The colony is secure. And the captured NIGMA technology? Being analyzed now. Their bio-neural systems are more advanced than we anticipated, but fundamentally vulnerable to our reprogramming techniques. Drell nodded. Prepare a comprehensive report for High Command and send a second transmission to the NIGMA conclave. Hours later, Supreme Overlord Zith Kragath received footage of his destroyed fleet, followed by a simple message from Admiral Drell. That was one colony. We have thousands. Reconsider your position. In the silence that followed, even the arrogant conclave members felt the first stirrings of fear. Supreme Overlord Zith Kragath summoned his war council, six-fingered hands trembling with barely contained rage. The loss of a harvest fleet was unprecedented, an embarrassment that threatened his 14th-century rule. "How were we deceived?" he demanded, voice cracking with harmonic distortion. Valexia projected a hologram of the human defense system. "The technology is ingenious, Supreme One. They've developed gravitational manipulation far beyond what we believed possible for their civilization. And these nanomechanical weapons, specifically designed to target our bioneural pathways. They've been studying us, preparing for this confrontation." War Minister Calvex, his carapace bearing the scars of 100 campaigns, leaned forward. "One colony's defense doesn't indicate system-wide capabilities. We have overwhelming numerical superiority. You suggest we continue the assault?" Zith Kragath asked. "With modifications," Calvex replied. "The humans revealed advanced technology, but also their strategy. We now know what to counter." Zith Kragath considered this. The NIGMA Empire had dominated the galactic quadrant for millennia precisely because it adapted, evolved, and overcame. It consumed the strengths of conquered species, incorporating their advancements into the collective. "Prepare the Void Maw," he ordered finally. "Not a harvest fleet. Total eradication." Across the Empire, production nodes began manufacturing specialized countermeasures against human gravitational technology. The massive dreadnought Void Maw, nearly the size of a small moon, began powering its dimensional drive. Meanwhile, on Earth, the Unified Solar Parliament convened in emergency session. Images from Nova Terra displayed on massive screens showed the destroyed NIGMA vessels. "Operation Harbinger's first phase was successful," announced Admiral Drell to the assembled representatives, "but we've only bloodied their nose. Intelligence suggests they're preparing a major counter-offensive." Parliament Speaker Rykov, a stoic veteran of the Mars uprising, addressed the chamber. "Admiral, some representatives question whether our response is proportional. The NIGMA targeted one colony. Must we pursue their extinction?" Drell activated a holographic display showing thousands of worlds. "This is what the NIGMA call their consumption registry, planets they've harvested over 20,000 years. Conservative estimates put the death toll at over 1 trillion sentient beings." The chamber fell silent as the magnitude sank in. "They didn't target just one colony," Drell continued. "They targeted humanity's future. If we show weakness now, extinction is inevitable, not just for us, but for all remaining intelligent life in the quadrant." Across human space, preparations accelerated. On lunar base, quantum physicists finalized calculations for Project Eclipse. In the asteroid belt, autonomous factories converted entire planetoids into specialized weaponry. And in deep space, the true nature of human military power began to reveal itself. 3 days later, the NIGMA attack came, not at Earth as expected, but at the agricultural world of Demeter. The Void Maw emerged from dimensional space accompanied by 3,000 support vessels, their hulls now coated with anti-nanite fields. "Commence planetary sterilization," ordered War Minister Calvex from the command center. The Void Maw's primary weapon began charging, a gravitational singularity designed to collapse a planet's core. NIGMA warriors anticipated fierce resistance, ready to counter the human defenses seen at Nova Terra. Instead, they found nothing. No gravitational weapons, no nanite swarms, no defense fleet. Scans confirm the human colony is undefended, reported a confused tactical officer. Calvex's instincts screamed warning. Full spectrum scan, check for cloaked vessels. But there was only the agricultural colony below, seemingly abandoned in haste. Proceed with planetary sterilization, Calvex ordered, uneasiness growing. As the Void Maw reached full charge, sensors detected a quantum anomaly, tiny, almost insignificant, near Demeter's moon. Too late, Calvex realized the trap. Abort. Firing sequence, emergency dimensional jump. On the apparently abandoned colony, a single quantum beacon activated, sending a precisely calibrated signal to the anomaly. In that instant, 300 light-years away, Admiral Drell gave a simple command, execute. The fabric of space between Demeter's moon and the NIGMA fleet collapsed, creating an artificial wormhole. Through this tear in reality emerged not a human fleet, but something far worse. A precisely calculated fragment of a neutron star, accelerated to near light speed. The relativistic kill vehicle struck the Void Maw with the energy of a supernova, vaporizing the massive vessel and its 3,000 escorts in less than a second. Where a mighty armada had been, only expanding plasma remained. Humanity had revealed its ultimate weapon, the ability to weaponize astronomical objects through controlled quantum tunneling. Back on Vexillum, Supreme Overlord Zith Kragath received the news with dawning horror. For the first time in his long existence, he felt something alien to NIGMA psychology. Doubt. Kalos Vortath, chief science architect of the NIGMA Empire, slammed his appendage against the laboratory wall, cracking. The reinforced polycrystal. The destruction of the Void Maw had sent shockwaves throughout Imperial hierarchy. Now, facing Supreme Overlord Zith Kragath, he struggled to explain the inexplicable. They transported a stellar remnant through artificial space-time distortion. Vortath explained, mandibles clicking in agitation. The energy requirements alone should be beyond their technological horizon by at least 3 centuries. Zith Kragath's membrane sacs pulsated with rage. Yet they achieved it. How? Unknown, Supreme One. We've underestimated them catastrophically. The Supreme Overlord turned to War Minister Calvex, who had barely survived the Demeter ambush by being in a separate command vessel. Our options. Total mobilization, Calvex responded without hesitation. We possess numerical superiority. Deploy the entire Imperial fleet simultaneously against all human worlds. Even with their advanced weaponry, they cannot defend everywhere. At once, Velexia, who had urged caution from the beginning, interjected. Supreme One, consider diplomatic resolution. These humans have demonstrated capabilities beyond our assessment. Perhaps accommodation. Zith Kragath's voice rose to a chittering shriek. In 14,000 years, the NIGMA Empire has never retreated, never surrendered. We adapt, we overcome, we consume. He turned to Calvex. Deploy the evolutionary contingency. Even the hardened War Minister seemed disturbed. Supreme One, the contingency has never been field-tested. The biological implications are necessary, finished Zith Kragath. Accelerate our evolution by 10,000 generations. Make us immune to their weapons. Across the Empire, emergency protocols activated ancient bioforges buried beneath each NIGMA world. The species had evolved through controlled biological engineering, preserving genetic templates from every stage of their development. Now those templates would be recombined, accelerating adaptation against human technology. Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral Drell addressed an emergency session of the Security Council. The NIGMA are centralizing their fleet assets, she reported, displaying tactical projections. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for simultaneous attacks across all human territories. Even with our technological advantage, we cannot prevent significant civilian casualties. General Valen Koros, commander of Earth's defense grid, studied the projections. How many ships? Conservative estimate, 20,000 capital ships, perhaps triple that in support vessels. The room fell silent, processing the overwhelming numbers. Then we must strike first, Koros declared. Deploy Project Eclipse before they mobilize. Defense Minister Imbari shook her head. Eclipse was intended as a last resort. The ethical implications were debated and resolved when the project was authorized, Drell interrupted. We issued one warning. They chose extinction. The Security Council voted 7-2 to authorize deployment. In deep space, at the edge of human territory, the research vessel Prometheus dropped out of FTL, carrying Project Eclipse's core components. Chief Scientist Rendell Nixos supervised as the quantum displacement array assembled itself into a perfect sphere 5 kilometers in diameter. Targeting calculations complete, announced Nixos's assistant Loren. The artifact is primed. Nixos took a deep breath. Begin quantum entanglement sequence. On Vexillum, the first subjects emerged from the bioforges, evolved NIGMA warriors with enhanced carapaces resistant to nanite infiltration, modified neural pathways immune to human hacking techniques, and sensory organs capable of detecting gravitational fluctuations. Zith Kragath observed the new warriors with satisfaction. How soon until conversion of the Imperial forces? 3 days for priority battalions, responded Vortath. 2 weeks for the entire military. Acceptable. And the counterweapon. Vortath activated a holographic display showing a spherical device. By analyzing debris from the Demeter incident, we've developed a dimensional stabilizer that should prevent their quantum tunneling weapon. For the first time since the crisis began, Zith Kragath felt confidence returning. The NIGMA had faced existential threats before, always emerging stronger by absorbing their enemies' advantages. Deploy the stabilizers to all command vessels, he ordered. Prepare for total war. But neither the Supreme Overlord nor his advisors understood the true nature of Project Eclipse. It wasn't merely a weapon. It was a fundamental rewriting of physical law within a defined region of space. As the Prometheus activated the quantum displacement array, no energy beam streaked across space, no relativistic projectile launched toward the NIGMA homeworld. Instead, a subtle shift propagated through subspace, invisible, undetectable, unstoppable. On Vexillum, the first sign came from astronomical observatories. Stars at the edge of the galaxy began to dim, then disappear altogether. The effect spread rapidly, a wave of darkness consuming the night sky. "What's happening?" demanded Zith Kragath, as emergency alerts flooded the Imperial Palace. "Science architect." Vortath stared at incoming data with incomprehension. It's as if space itself is being rewritten around our empire. In the quantum corridor linking NIGMA worlds, the dimensional constants that allowed FTL travel began to shift. Vessels in transit found themselves trapped in a realm between dimensions, neither fully in normal space nor completely in subspace. The NIGMA empire, dependent on its quantum network for survival, began to disintegrate, not with explosive destruction, but with quiet physical impossibility. Project Eclipse had changed the fundamental physical constants within NIGMA space, rendering their technology and eventually their biology incompatible with the universe itself. From the observation deck of the HSV Vindication, Admiral Drell watched the unprecedented phenomenon unfold. Where the 1,000 worlds of the NIGMA empire had existed now, pulsed a region of altered space-time, a bubble universe with incompatible physical constants. "Project Eclipse status?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Science Director Elwin Morash consulted his quantum interface. "Propagation complete, Admiral. The dimensional recalibration has encompassed all 1,247 NIGMA-controlled systems. Casualties? Marash hesitated. Difficult to quantify, Admiral. Technically, they're not dead in the conventional sense. The altered physical constants make their biology impossible. Lieutenant Evrard joined them at the viewport. The Senate is demanding updates. Some representatives are calling it genocide. It was their choice, Drell replied, though her tone lacked conviction. One warning, they chose extinction. Inside the altered region, the NIGMA experience defied description. As fundamental forces changed, strong nuclear force strengthening, electromagnetic force weakening, matter itself began behaving according to different rules. On Vexillum, Supreme Overlord Zith Kragath watched in horror as his own appendages began to lose cohesion. Atoms struggling to maintain their bonds under new physical laws. Around him, the Imperial Palace, once a monument. The NIGMA engineering collapsed as molecular structures failed. Vortath, he called out desperately. Explanation! Solution! The science architect's form wavered like a mirage. They've altered dimensional constants within our space. Our physics no longer functions. War Minister Calvex, his carapace, already dissolving into constituent particles, chittered in rage. Can we escape? Dimensional drives? Impossible, Vortath interrupted. Our technology depends on the physical constants they've changed. Nothing works. Nothing can work. Across 1,000 worlds, the mighty NIGMA civilization didn't burn or explode or suffocate. It simply became a physical impossibility, dissolving. As atoms could no longer maintain proper bonds, as chemical reactions necessary for life ceased functioning, as the fundamental building blocks of existence rearranged according to new laws. In the unified solar parliament, the debate raged. Representative Sylviane Kistari of Mars addressed the chamber with fierce intensity. We've authorized the fundamental rewriting of existence for an entire species. This goes beyond war, beyond even genocide. We've changed what it means to destroy. An enemy, Admiral Drell, called to defend the action, stood firm. The alternative was allowing the NIGMA to continue consuming sentient species across the galaxy, their victims numbered in the trillions. How many more would have died? Perhaps, countered Representative Kistari, but have we become something worse in the process? The power to rewrite physical law, this makes us more dangerous than the NIGMA ever were. Defense Minister Imbari stepped forward. Project Eclipse was a singular response to an unprecedented threat. The technology has been dismantled, the research secured. Not entirely true, Drell knew. The principles behind Eclipse remained, the knowledge impossible to erase. Humanity had crossed a threshold, learned it could redefine reality itself as a weapon. On the fringes of what had been NIGMA space, human scientific vessels cautiously approached the phenomenon. Inside the bubble universe, strange new forms of matter precipitated from the altered vacuum. Materials with properties that defied conventional physics. Chief Scientist Nixos led the research expedition, his conscience heavy with the knowledge of his creation. Take spectroscopic readings. At 5-minute intervals, we need to understand the long-term stability of the altered region. His assistant, Loren, adjusted the sensors. Sir, I'm detecting organized patterns in the quantum foam, almost like what? Like information, encoded somehow in the fluctuations. Nixos studied the readings with growing unease. Within the chaotic dissolution of the NIGMA civilization, something unexpected was emerging, patterns too regular to be random, too complex to be accidental. Across human space, news of the NIGMA's extinction spread. For most citizens, it brought relief, a terrible enemy vanquished before it could bring destruction to humanity. But for those who understood the implications of Project Eclipse, the victory carried troubling questions. Admiral Drell returned to her quarters aboard the Vindication, finally alone with her thoughts. On her desk sat a small holographic projector, a gift from her late spouse. She activated it, displaying images of ancient Earth monuments. "We've changed," she whispered to herself. "Crossed a line no species should cross." As she contemplated humanity's new place in the cosmos, reports continued arriving from the research vessels. The altered region was stabilizing, but evolving in ways no one had predicted. The NIGMA were gone, but something else was forming in the space where they had been, something unforeseen, something perhaps even more alien than what humanity had destroyed. 5 years after Project Eclipse, Admiral Kenneth Drell stood before the monument to the extinct, a controversial memorial on Luna that listed every species confirmed eliminated by the NIGMA Empire. The monument stretched nearly a kilometer, names etched in luminescent crystal that glowed like dying stars. At the end of the list, a small plaque read simply, "NIGMA Empire, last known extinction." Drell's hair had gone completely silver, her face lined with the burden of her command. She no longer wore a military uniform, having retired after the NIGMA conflict. Few recognized the civilian walking alone through the memorial garden. "I thought I might find you here," came a familiar voice. Drell turned to see former Lieutenant Everard, now Ambassador Everard, to the Galactic Council. "The vote is today?" she asked. Everard nodded. "The Council convenes in 3 hours to decide humanity's status." In the years since the NIGMA's dissolution, humanity had faced its own reckoning. The species that had feared the NIGMA now feared humans instead. The power to rewrite physical law had made Earth a pariah among surviving civilizations. "Will they pass the containment resolution?" Drell asked. "Likely," Everard replied grimly. 217 species have voted to quarantine Earth and all human colonies within our current territory. No expansion permitted, no further development of dimensional manipulation technology. Drell stared at the monument. "Perhaps they're right to fear us." "We saved them," Everard protested. "The NIGMA would have consumed every sentient species eventually, and they wonder if we'll do worse." Drell gestured toward the starfield, visible through Luna's atmospheric dome. "We've lost something, Everard. The trust of the galaxy. Perhaps even our humanity." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication. Everard's diplomatic implant flashed with priority coding. "Ambassador, we've detected anomalous activity in the Eclipse Zone. Dr. Nixos requests your immediate presence." The Eclipse Zone, the bubble universe created by Project Eclipse, had become a scientific mystery. For 5 years, research vessels had observed the altered space from a safe distance, recording unexpected developments within the zone's boundaries. Hours later, Drell and Everard stood in the observation chamber of the research station Prometheus 2, staring at holographic representations of the zone's interior. Chief Scientist Nixos, now considerably older and more haggard, manipulated the display controls. 3 days ago, we detected coherent transmission patterns originating from within the zone, he explained. Today they resolved into this. The hologram shifted, displaying a complex mathematical equation. "It's a communication attempt," Nixos continued, "from inside the altered space." Drell stared in disbelief. "That's impossible. Nothing survived." "Eclipse, the physical constants were changed," Nixos finished, "but life adapts. We're detecting organized complexity within the zone, not NIGMA, something new, something born from the altered physics we created." Everard studied the equation. "What does it mean?" "It's a proposal," explained Nixos. "A method for stable communication between our universe and theirs. They're reaching out." The implications stunned the room into silence. Humanity had not merely destroyed an enemy, they had inadvertently created a new form of existence, one that had developed consciousness within. The altered physics of the eclipse zone. "Have you responded?" Drell finally asked. "We waited for authorization," Nixos replied. "The Galactic Council needs to know before we proceed." Everard's diplomatic experience immediately assessed the situation. "This changes everything. If sentient life has emerged from our actions, if we've created rather than merely destroyed, the containment vote may fail." But Drell wasn't thinking about politics. Her gaze remained fixed on the equation, the greeting from a consciousness born from an act of war. "Prepare a response," she ordered, "before the Council votes." When the Galactic Council convened, Ambassador Everard presented not just humanity's defense against containment, but evidence of the emerging intelligence within the eclipse zone. The revelation transformed the proceedings from judgment to wonder. One solar month later, Admiral Drell, now appointed special envoy to the eclipse entity, supervised the establishment of the first stable communication portal between universes. Through carefully calibrated quantum interfaces, humanity began dialogue with the beings they had accidentally created. The entity did not communicate in language as biological species understood it. Instead, it transmitted complex mathematical equations that, when solved, produced concepts rather than words. One equation, particularly elegant in its formulation, resolved to a concept that human mathematicians translated as creators of new possibility. "They don't blame us," Drell realized, reviewing the translations. "They don't even conceptualize their existence in terms of our conflict with the NIGMA." Nixos nodded. "To them, their universe has always existed with those physical constants. They've evolved specifically to thrive in conditions impossible for us. They see us not as destroyers, but as parents." The irony wasn't lost on Drell. Humanity had set out to stop extinction, had chosen to commit one final extinction to end the cycle, and instead had birthed an entirely new form of life, one that existed in a universe with different fundamental rules. In her private journal that night, Drell wrote, "We warned the NIGMA once. They chose extinction, but extinction became transformation. From destruction we have inadvertently created. Perhaps this is our redemption, not that we saved existing life, but that we enabled new life to emerge. The universe, it seems, finds ways to balance even our most terrible acts." Across human space, the news spread. Humanity would not be contained by the Galactic Council. Instead, Earth had been appointed custodian of the eclipse entity, tasked with establishing peaceful relations between universes. The monument to the extinct received one final addition. Beneath the NIGMA entry, a new inscription appeared, where, when existence ended, another began. The final extinction became the first genesis. Admiral Kyneth Drell, architect of the NIGMA's end and midwife to a new form of existence, finally found a measure of peace. One warning had been issued, one empire had fallen. But unlike all previous extinctions in the long, dark history of this galaxy, this one had not been an ending. It had been a beginning.